The South. To discuss the importance of the upcoming regional and municipal elections in Venezuela, we now welcome Dany Shaw, Senior Research Fellow at the Council on Hemispheric Affairs. Dany, thank you so much for joining us here at teleSUR English once again.
Good evening from Caracas.
It's a pleasure to have you here. This Thursday saw the close of the election campaign ahead of Sunday's vote. What can you tell us about the process up to now and the different political parties and alliances that are participating in these elections?
Yes, different opposition parties and the PSUV are in full mobilization mode. Today was the last day of campaigning, so they were culminating rallies across the country for different parties. There's international observers from around the world, but it seems that the U.S. and the core group and the usual bullies have already decided that this election, like the election 2 weeks ago in Nicaragua, is not good enough for them, not quote unquote democratic enough for them. They've done everything to sabotage the peace process of the Venezuelan opposition parties with the PSUV. They had very important talks in Mexico City for the past few months, but then mysteriously the day before elections in Cape Verde and a month before the elections here in Caracas, Alex Saab was again kidnapped a second time and extradited to a prison cell in Miami. So certainly that was among one of the many sabotage acts against what's a people's democracy here in Venezuela.
Dany, as you're saying there, even before the vote's been held, there have been statements from Western powers, namely the United States and the European Union, undermining the fairness and the credibility of these elections. Can we expect the same old script of not recognizing the results of Sunday's vote, especially if they favor Chavista forces?
Yes, exactly. It's foreordained that the usual bullies are going to make the same pronouncements on Sunday and Monday, that this did not fulfill their democratic, quote unquote, ideals and principles. The very same forces who have continued to invade and colonize and pillage and occupy around the world. It's been a hybrid, multifaceted war against the 30 million people of Venezuela, resulting in all types of injustice and hunger and forced migration. 6 to 7 million Venezuelans have been forced to leave since Barack Obama signed the executive order for heightening sanctions against Venezuela in 2014. So the European Union just this week announced the next round of sanctions, renewed sanctions. And we know that sanctions and blockades are the weapons of the rich and powerful to try to make the poor and oppressed cower before their power. But the Venezuelan people were again in the streets today across the country saying that this is a participatory democracy, that the everyday people, the women, the peasants, the workers, the youth, the most vulnerable sectors of the economy are the protagonists of this democracy. So they're expecting a big turnout on Sunday.
Dany, as you said there, Venezuela continues to live under US and EU sanctions that have heavily impacted its economy and caused suffering for its population. What can you tell us about these aggressions and how the Bolivarian Revolution specifically has worked to overcome these obstacles?
Yeah, just recently, the food program CLAP is now 100% self-sufficient. None of the food comes from the exterior. We've seen all types of everyday Venezuelan innovation, in a spirit of surviving by any means necessary in a collective way. A major thing here in Venezuela, the pillars of everyday people's power, is what they call the civilian, military, and police unity. Certainly to us in the West, that would sound like a strange concept when the police humiliate, brutalize, and in so many cases murder our people in the most oppressed communities. But here you see police forces, certainly there's exceptions as well, but in general, that was the legacy of the Bolivarian Revolution, of Hugo Chavez's leadership. Of course, Chavez was somebody who rose up through the military ranks. So to see this everyday unity, the level of consciousness in the military, there's a militia here of some 4 million Venezuelan women and men. They're ready for any type of intervention. They've been through mercenary interventions, the sabotaging of their public services, of the electric grid, of the transportation, of the oil rigs. Imperialism has done everything to try to shoot down this shining star so that Venezuela can't be an example for the people of Colombia, for the people of Ecuador, for the people of Panama, the entire continent, and the oppressed the world over.
Dany, you're there in Caracas. What are the expectations for this Sunday's vote? Also, how could the results shape the governance of the country, given that these are regional and local level positions?
Yeah, the election on Sunday is extremely important. It was in 2017, the last time. Dozens and dozens and hundreds of positions as governors and mayors, a lot of the local power, and then the indigenous seats in the National Assembly were up for grabs. There's a lot of enthusiasm here. There's also the everyday resistance. The Venezuelan populace knows that the results, just like in Nicaragua, the wrong people in many cases are going to win, wrong from the perspective of imperialism. The opposition is very fractured. The opposition has been extremely corrupt. The people here, the everyday people in the barrios, and in the popular sectors are asking, where is our $2 billion of gold that the Bank of England stole? What about all of the oil wealth from PDVSA, from Citgo, that the Guaidos and the Lopezes and the other lackeys of imperialism have pillaged away from the people? So the Venezuelan people are very aware that there's an ongoing revolution here, a permanent revolution with all of its challenges and contradictions. I think there is a very internationalist spirit and consciousness here as well. The people are looking closely at the developments as the class struggle carries out in Peru, in the summits of Peruvian power, the advances that the Bolivians have made in the past few months, the setbacks in Ecuador, but a resurging people's movement. And they're looking for more unity and more integration. Every time one cut off in the third world, in the oppressed countries, and there's greater unity and integration in the Bolivarian spirit, in the spirit of the pink tide. This is a victory for all of the people of Venezuela, because historically the nature of colonialism and neocolonialism is to make sure that this economy is dependent on the dollar and on the US, and that's why the blockade has hurt so much. So this is the 29th election in 21 years since Chavismo came into power. So the people are ready to keep moving forward.
Dany Shaw joining us from Caracas live. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and for offering your valuable insight into these elections, which will be held this Sunday. Thank you.